Your past is not your destiny. You're sitting right now, making decisions about your future based on things that happened years ago. You're constructing your identity around experiences that you can't change. You're allowing moments from your past to dictate who you're going to become. And you don't even realize it's happening. This is the trap. This is the prison. Your past is not your destiny, but you've made it your master. You've given it complete control over your present and your future. And this needs to stop right now, in this moment. The truth is brutal. You are not your history. You are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are not what happened to you. You are the person you choose to become in response to what happened to you. This distinction is everything. This is where freedom lives. Because if you are your past, then you're stuck. You're imprisoned by things you can't change. You're sentenced to repeat the patterns that created the damage. You're forced to accept that who you are now is determined by who you were before. But if you are the person who chooses how to respond to your past, then you have infinite potential. Then you have power. Then you have agency. Then you have the ability to become anyone. The problem is that most people have internalized their past so deeply that they can't see the difference between what happened to me and who I am. A parent criticized them, so they believe they're not good enough. They failed at something, so they believe they're a failure. They were abandoned, so they believe they're unlovable. They were poor, so they believe they'll always be poor. They were bullied, so they believe they deserve disrespect. They experienced trauma, so they believe they're broken. These are the narratives we construct, and then we live inside them as if they're truth. But they're not truth. They're just stories. Stories that we can rewrite. Stories that we can change. Stories that no longer serve us. The most important thing you need to understand is that your past shaped you, but it doesn't define you. Your past gave you certain wounds, certain beliefs, certain patterns, but you are not obligated to keep those wounds open. You are not required to keep believing the stories that your past taught you. You are not sentenced to repeat the patterns that got you here. You can look at your past, acknowledge it, understand what it taught you, and then consciously choose a different path. This is what healing is. This is what freedom is. This is what becoming your true self actually means. But here's the insidious part: your past is comfortable. It's familiar. Even if it's painful, you know it. You understand it. You've adapted to it. There's a strange safety in it. And change, even positive change, requires you to leave that safety. It requires you to step into the unknown. It requires you to believe that you could be different even though you've never been different. This is terrifying. So instead, most people stay in their past. They rehearse it. They retell it. They collect evidence that confirms it. They make decisions based on it. They organize their entire lives around it. And they call it wisdom. They call it being realistic. They call it learning from experience. But it's not. It's imprisonment. And you need to recognize it for what it is before you can break free from it. Your past is not controlling you. You're controlling you by holding on to your past. The moment you realize this, the moment you see that you have the power to let it go, the moment you decide that your past is information but not instruction, that's when everything changes. That's when you become free. That's when you can finally become who you're meant to be. Please subscribe to this channel if you're ready to break free from the control of your past. Your future depends on this decision. 2. The stories you tell yourself about your past. You have a narrative about your past. You've told this story so many times that you believe it's absolute truth. You believe it's objective fact. You believe it's the way things actually are. But it's not. It's just a story. A story that you constructed. A story that you've been reinforcing through repetition. A story that is keeping you stuck. Here's what's important to understand: your past is just data. It's just events that happened. Those events have no inherent meaning until you assign meaning to them. But you've assigned meaning. You've created narratives around what happened. And those narratives are not fact. They're interpretation. And interpretation can be changed. Let me give you an example. Two people experience the exact same event. Their parent leaves when they're young. One person says, "My parent left because I wasn't good enough. This means I'm unlovable. This means everyone will eventually leave me." Another person says, "My parent left because they had their own struggles. This has nothing to do with my worth. This taught me that I need to be strong for myself." Same event. Completely different narratives. Completely different impact on their lives. The past didn't determine this difference. The interpretation of the past did. And here's the revolutionary part: you can change your interpretation. You can rewrite the story. You can take the events of your past and assign new meaning to them. This doesn't mean denying what happened. It doesn't mean pretending the pain wasn't real. It means acknowledging what happened while also acknowledging that the meaning you gave it was a choice. A choice you made unconsciously, often based on incomplete understanding, often based on beliefs you'd picked up from people around you. And a choice you can now remake consciously, based on who you're trying to become. The stories we tell ourselves are powerful. They shape our identity. They shape our beliefs about what's possible. They shape our decisions. They shape our relationships. They shape everything. And most of us are living in stories that we didn't consciously choose. We inherited them from our families, our culture, our experiences. We accepted them as truth without ever questioning them. And now we're organizing our entire lives around stories that don't actually serve us. But here's the thing: if you can tell a disempowering story about your past, you can tell an empowering story. If you can construct a narrative that keeps you stuck, you can construct a narrative that sets you free. The question is, what story do you want to tell? What narrative would serve you better? What meaning could you assign to your past that would make you stronger, not weaker? That would make you wiser, not more afraid? That would make you more compassionate, not more hardened? Once you ask these questions, once you realize that you have the power to change your narrative, you start to become unstuck. You start to see possibilities where you previously saw limitations. You start to see strength where you previously saw weakness. You start to see growth where you previously saw damage. This is not denial. This is not toxic positivity. This is conscious reframing. This is taking the raw material of your past and choosing to shape it in a way that empowers you rather than imprisons you. Your past isn't changing, but the story you tell about it can. And that story is everything. Subscribe please if you're ready to rewrite the stories that have been controlling you. Your new narrative is waiting to be written. 3. How your past is playing out in your present. You're not aware of it, but your past is active right now. It's shaping your decisions. It's influencing your relationships. It's driving your behaviors. It's creating your future. You think you're making present decisions based on present circumstances, but you're not. You're making decisions based on past experiences and the beliefs those experiences created. This is what makes the past so insidious. It's invisible. It operates below the level of consciousness. You don't see it happening. You just experience the consequences. Someone criticizes you, and you overreact. Why? Because in your past, criticism meant you were bad. Someone doesn't text you back immediately, and you spiral into anxiety. Why? Because in your past, abandonment is what happened when people lost interest. Someone offers you an opportunity, and you decline it. Why? Because in your past, you tried something similar and failed, so you believe you'll always fail. You're making present decisions based on past experiences. And you don't even realize it's happening. This is how your past controls you. This is how it dictates your life without your conscious awareness. The worst part is that when you make decisions based on past fears, you confirm the past narrative. You create evidence that validates the old story. Someone doesn't text you back, you push them away out of fear of abandonment, they actually do abandon you, and you think, "See? I was right. People always leave. I was right to be afraid." But you're not seeing the whole picture. You're not seeing that you created the outcome you were afraid of through your own behavior. You're not seeing that the past narrative shaped the present decision which created the future reality. This is a loop. And it repeats over and over until you break it. Here's what you need to understand. your past is running your present like an operating system. It's running in the background, processing information, making calculations, executing programs, all without your awareness. And just like an operating system, you can update it. You can change the programming. But first, you have to see it. You have to become aware of how your past is showing up in your present. You have to notice the patterns. Notice when you overreact. Notice when you assume the worst. Notice when you self-sabotage. Notice when you choose the familiar pain over the unfamiliar possibility. Notice when you're making a decision not because it's what you want, but because it's what your past taught you to want. Once you start noticing these patterns, you can start to interrupt them. You can pause and ask, is this decision coming from my past or from my present? You can ask, what would I choose if I didn't have this old story running in the background? You can ask, what would a version of me without this past trauma choose right now? And in that space, in that moment of consciousness, you have power. You have the ability to choose differently. You have the ability to break the pattern. But you can't break what you can't see. So the first step is awareness. The first step is recognizing how your past is playing out in your present. The first step is seeing the operating system that's running your life. Once you see it, you can change it. Please subscribe if you're ready to see how your past is controlling your present. The awareness you need is coming in the next section. 4. The freedom that comes when you release the past. There is a freedom that comes when you finally let go of your past. Not when you forget about it. Not when you pretend it didn't happen. But when you stop letting it control you. When you stop organizing your life around it. When you stop seeking redemption or validation or healing from it. When you simply acknowledge that it happened, that it shaped you, and that you're now choosing something different. This freedom is real. It's tangible. It's one of the most powerful experiences you can have. Most people have never felt this freedom because they've never released their past. They've been carrying it their entire lives. They've been thinking about it, talking about it, organizing their choices around it. They've made it the central narrative of their identity. And while they're carrying that weight, they can't fully move forward. But the moment you put it down, the moment you say, I'm not carrying this anymore, everything shifts. The first thing that shifts is your energy. Carrying your past is exhausting. You're constantly thinking about what happened. You're constantly calculating how to avoid it happening again. You're constantly proving that you've learned from it or overcome it. You're constantly seeking validation that you're not defined by it. This takes enormous energy. And when you put the past down, when you stop carrying it, you get all that energy back. You can suddenly focus on building your future instead of healing your past. You can suddenly focus on who you want to become instead of who you've been. You can suddenly focus on possibility instead of protection. The second thing that shifts is your relationships. When you're carrying your past, you bring it into every relationship. You expect people to hurt you the way you've been hurt before. You test them to see if they're trustworthy. You keep them at a distance so they can't abandon you. You act out patterns that were created in your past. And all of this prevents real connection. But when you release your past, when you stop bringing it into your relationships, you can actually be present with people. You can actually see them instead of seeing your past through them. You can actually trust instead of being suspicious. You can actually be vulnerable instead of being defended. Real intimacy becomes possible. The third thing that shifts is your potential. When you're defined by your past, your possibilities are limited. You can only imagine a future that's consistent with your identity. You can only be the person your past created. But when you release your past, when you stop being defined by it, suddenly your possibilities expand exponentially. You can become anyone. You can do anything. You're no longer limited by what happened. You're only limited by your imagination and your willingness to take action. The fourth thing that shifts is your peace. Carrying your past is like carrying a heavy backpack. You're constantly aware of its weight. You're constantly tired. You're constantly strained. But when you put it down, when you release it, there's this profound sense of lightness. There's peace. There's space. There's room to breathe. And this peace is what allows you to actually heal. This peace is what allows you to actually grow. This peace is what allows you to actually become who you want to become. Now, here's what's important. Releasing your past doesn't mean you're over it. It doesn't mean you're no longer affected by it. It doesn't mean you forget about it. It means you stop giving it power over your present. It means you stop making it the central story of your identity. It means you integrate it, you understand it, you learn from it, but you don't let it run your life. This is the freedom. This is what's available to you. This is what's waiting on the other side of releasing your past. So the question is, are you ready for it? Are you ready to put down the weight you've been carrying? Are you ready to stop being defined by what happened and start being defined by who you choose to become? Are you ready to move from victim to creator? From controlled to free? The answer to that question will determine your future. Because everything changes the moment you decide that your past is not your destiny. Everything changes the moment you decide that you're going to release it. Everything changes the moment you decide that you're going to be free.